Hey everyone, Cody Hayes here, and I'd like to welcome you to part three as we look at the historical Jesus. And where we left off is with a reconstructed timeline. And to continue on with that, religious wise, Jesus would have been in agreement with the Pharisees, at least on issues related to the eternal soul and the resurrection. So, religious wise, he would have been in agreement with the Pharisees on the issues of the eternal soul and the resurrection. In terms of the political views, Jesus might not necessarily have been in agreement with the Pharisees, but on other issues, particularly the religious ones, there he would have been in agreement with them. Disciples were part of Jesus's ministry, but he had an inner disciple of 12, also known as apostles. And of these 12 disciples slash apostles, Peter was the most prominent. And continuing on with the ministry of Jesus, he had a ministry that was known for performing miracles. Can't actually prove that he did, but he had a ministry that was known for them. So that you can show. Condemned by Jewish and Roman officials for arguably being a troublemaker. Again, this is arguably for why Jewish and Roman officials wanted Jesus to be executed, and the most moderate answer is that they viewed him as a troublemaker and just wanted him out of the way. And that he was executed by crucifixion on the orders of the Roman governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate, and that this took place in Jerusalem at the time of Passover and when Tiberius Caesar was the Roman emperor. Okay, that's essentially, a reconstructed timeline of Jesus's life. But how about some of the sayings of Jesus? Well, from the birth of Jesus until his death, what words attributed to him are authentic versus what someone wanted Jesus to say? I mentioned this in one of the earlier videos with a conversation between Richard Dawkins and John Huddleston, and I don't remember how the question was exactly asked, but it was something along the lines of the sayings of Jesus. How many of those are authentic versus what someone wanted Jesus to say? Because it was common in the ancient world. It still is a little bit true even in contemporary times that someone who is an important figure to a particular community, that individuals might put words into his or her mouth. And Huddleston's response back to that question was essentially, it depends on whom you talk to. Historians have different methods for determining that. Well, from my perspective, passages which have multiple attestation or passages which have major historical importance for Christians were passages that Jesus more than likely said. maybe not verbatim, but close enough to it. And here are some examples of this: the unique position of Peter in Matthew, and also apostolic authority in Matthew. Those passages are found only in the Gospel of Matthew, but considering the importance that they've had for Christians through the centuries, I would say that Jesus probably said something very, very close to that, if not verbatim, but very close. The institution of the Eucharist or the Holy Communion. Again, the Eucharist, the Holy Communion, it's often referred to as the sacrament. So it has major importance. And with the other two, I'm taking some liberties here. With the sacrament or the ritual of reconciliation, and then the beloved disciple. And the reason I'm taking liberties is because those particular words come after the death of Jesus. Because anything that Jesus says or is attributed to after his death is in the realm of faith, because the resurrection is in the realm of faith. But from my perspective, I would say that the words relating to the sacrament of reconciliation, that considering how important that particular sacrament is, I would say that Jesus probably said something along those lines during his lifetime, but in the case with the Gospel of John, they were placed after his death and subsequent resurrection. And same true with the beloved disciple, that this is probably something that Jesus said in his lifetime, but those words found their way into the extended ending of John. And a big reason why was to address the fact that the beloved disciple is now deceased. How do we answer the fact that he is now deceased? And some last bit here, questions to consider. Let me have some water on this one real quick. 1. Was Jesus an only child, or did he have siblings? Now, of course, I touched on, with looking at the Gospel of Matthew, that the brothers and sisters of Jesus, traditionally, those were understood to be, close kinsmen, teaching Mary being a perpetual virgin. Of course, somebody, having a child through asexual means is in the realm of faith. But regardless of that, Jesus being the only child of Mary and Joseph, biological child, is within the realm of possibilities, and that the siblings, the brothers and sisters, were close kinsmen, cousins, as the word brother and sister would relate to not just, a blood relative, or in this case, another child of the same parents or parent. Um, but did he have siblings? Did Mary and Joseph have other children? That's not a concern to the author of the Gospel of Matthew. He's only concerned with that Mary didn't have any other children up till the birth of Jesus. But did Mary and Joseph have other children? Or were they perhaps, children that Joseph had from a previous relationship, as mentioned in the Gospel of Infancy James, a non canonical gospel, but doesn't change its historical importance? And regardless of what scenario you want to look at, how would that affect, say, Jesus's temperament? And what kind of temperament as a child did Jesus have? In the Gospel of Infancy Thomas, again, another non canonical gospel, um, that work talks about Jesus from the age of 5 to 12. And when Jesus is a young child, he is at times quick tempered. He kills two boys his age and a rabbi because they make him angry. He essentially smites them dead. Now, obviously, a child having the ability to smite somebody dead by, say, snapping their fingers is in the realm of faith. But did Jesus have maybe a temperament like that as a young child? And then, as the Gospel of Infancy Thomas continues on, Jesus outgrows that attitude. So, what kind of temperament did he have? And did Jesus' knowledge of Greco Roman culture come from Siporius? Siporius, during Jesus' lifetime, was a major Greco Roman city. It was located about 3 miles from Nazareth. Today, it's now in ruins. Probably the size of Nazareth today would be something similar to the size of Siporius during Jesus' lifetime. Whereas in Jesus' lifetime, Nazareth was just a village. But did Jesus perhaps work in Siporius and take in a lot of the Greco Roman culture there? One of the statements that Jesus frequently makes in his ministry is the word hypocrite. Hypocrite was a common word that was used in Greco Roman plays. Did Jesus perhaps sit in on a play in Siporius while he was maybe working there, doing carpentry work? Or from the amphitheater, which is in ruins now, did the wind catch it right where Jesus could hear the words of the play in Nazareth one evening, perhaps? Was Jesus a person with means? The passage here relating to the Gospel of Mark mentions Jesus when he was at home in Capernaum. Now, was this his house, or was he staying with somebody? So, did he have means of some sort? I would say, obviously, he came from, at least we don't have any evidence otherwise, that he came from, a house in Nazareth. Would have been built by Joseph, more than likely. But just how much money did he have? Well, I think that we'll stop here, but we have maybe a few more to cover with questions to considering. So I will symbolically see you then.